me. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining me today. My name is Masi Mejia, and I am Manager of Education Programs here at East Foundation. And so I really wanted to highlight what we're doing in the classroom, on the land, in partnership with, and across the online World Wide Web with our virtual field lessons. And so I really encourage you all to drop comments, questions in the chats. I like to be an interactive speaker, and I don't want to hear my voice for the next hour. So would encourage you all to use the chat. So to get started, our mission at East Foundation is to promote the advancement of land stewardship through ranching, science, and education. And so as we get started, I did have a little icebreaker that I wanted to do. And so hopefully we can use the chat to do that. And so this is a game called Animal Alphabet. And so we are going to do some name associations. If we were in person, I'd have us make a circle so that we could do this. But for this first round, I want everyone to introduce themselves and make an animal association. So for example, I'm Masi, so I chose the mountain lion. So I'd love to see you guys drop that in the chat. Jenny the Jaguar. I love it. My son has a new fascination with jaguars. Bobby the Bat. Awesome. So in this next round, if we were in person, I'd have us then do animals by alphabetical order. So this is actually kind of hard and definitely makes this challenges our brain and what animals start with alphabetical letters. So for example, A, aardvark, B, bobcat, C, cat. Sorry about that. Then for the next round, I'd have us focus on native Texas animals. So we would then say A, alligator, B, bobcat, C, coyote, all the way to the letter Z. And so it gets a little bit challenging, probably after the letter N, M around there for normal individuals to kind of place those animals and letters and then focusing on native species within Texas. The next question I have, just to kind of understand my audience, is what is your earliest memory of being in nature? These are my two boys. I have a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old. My 3-year-old, that's when he was about a year old on the horse. And my 2-year-old there, his name's Mateo, with the giraffe. So what is your earliest memory of being in nature? For me, it was going to my grandparents' house and playing in the dirt, looking for ant lions, but in Spanish we call them toritos. So it was catching that. And if anyone wants to share their earliest memory, I'd love for you all to share that in the chat.
Earliest memory.
Seeing my toddlers grow up, I often wonder what their earliest memory will be. We actually live on 10 acres, so we spend a lot of time outside. We've had javelinas sneak up on us, and I wonder if that will be a moment that my son remembers as one of the earliest memory in nature. My mom, so I'm going to share, let's see, my mom told me I used to try to save all the worms and bring them in the doorway. I definitely remember doing that with toads, Gulf Coast toads. Gathering eggs under the house and came upon an indigo snake. I bet that was really scary. Oh, a good climbing tree. That's always fun. I have a memory of being with my cousins and we all climbed the tree and then all my cousins got off the tree and ran away and left me on the tree. So a little traumatic. I definitely had to call for help. And I think as adults did back then, I was it was my own fault for climbing the tree. But I also want to know what are some motivations that you have to get people outside? I am very fortunate that my personal and passion and interest align with getting people outside to explore nature, to understand what is around them. And very fortunate to have a position with East Foundation where I get paid to do that. So if you want to share that, you're welcome to share that, why you might be interested to get people outside or what those motivations might be. And I think because we're all here, we do all have an interest in getting children outside and exploring everything around them. So I thought I'd start off by sharing my story because I think that that is an important understanding in how I influence and educate the students around me here in South Texas. So I've always loved being outside. I've loved animals and nature. This is actually a third grade journal writing. And it says, I want to help my community by picking up trash. That is what I would do. And my friends and I will recycle all the trash. And so that's me. I'm Maria, and there with my three friends, Alexandra, Genesis, and Jennifer. I don't know if you can tell, but I actually drew myself very petite and then gave myself some really big shoes. I've always been pretty small, but I always laugh at third grade Masi. Um, Similar in that same year in May, um, I did mutton busting. I always had aspirations of becoming a professional bull rider. And so I did mutton busting as a in elementary, and in high school I got to do steer riding. I don't know how my mother let me do that now that I'm a mother, but very fortunate for those opportunities to go out and try and be a professional bull rider. Um, but all of those aspirations at that time in my life were definitely influenced by these two gentlemen. So these are my grandfather and my great grandfather. And so by the time I came around, I was one of the younger grandchildren, great grandchildren. And so I grew up listening to their stories. And I would listen to their stories of how they would be out on a ranch, they would be breaking horses, they would be rounding up cattle, they would be hunting off horseback. And for me, that was exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to be outside, uh, reliving the stories that they had told me. And so with that, I wanted to go hunting. And I was very fortunate that I connected with the Texas Youth Hunting Program as we did not have land to hunt on. We put in for a South Texas ranch hunt, and it ended up being on the King Ranch. And so this is actually me with my first deer and a gentleman by the name of Mark Bertoswitz. He served as the guide for that hunt, and he also happened to be a wildlife biologist with the King Ranch. So super cool opportunity. I got to stalk my deer, but for me, the most exciting part of the hunt was actually field dressing the animal. Mark took the time to name the internal anatomy, and I was elbow deep in deer anatomy, and I thought that was the coolest thing. And I knew that I wanted to work on a ranch after that, um, and have those same experiences and share that with others. And so I volunteered a lot as a teenager through Texas Youth Hunting Program. I also participated in Texas Brigades, which are great, phenomenal programs. But then came the time to choose college. And so I knew that I wanted to pursue a degree in nature, being outside. So I chose Texas Tech University. They had a degree in environmental conservation of natural resources. So I left my home of Laredo, Texas to Lubbock. And that was at the time that was closer to a 9-hour drive over 10 years ago. Speed limit increases have definitely shortened that drive. But going from a 99.9 Hispanic population to the city of Lubbock, which was not that, was definitely a change in itself for me as an individual, being around people who weren't like me, didn't look like me, maybe didn't even, speak the same language, if they knew English or Spanish, or just coming in with a bunch of international students. And so one of the first classes that I took was actually Introduction to Freshwater Ecology. And there was a professor there who went on and on about playas. And for me, I didn't know what a playa was. I should say a playa to me is at the beach. Growing up in South Texas, going over to South Padre Island, that was a playa. A playa up in the Panhandle is actually an ephemeral wetland. And so I was lost for maybe half of that semester until someone explained to me that the Spanish explorer Coronado was actually the individual who termed these ephemeral wetlands playas. And that kind of dawned on me is the importance of how we relate science to the language and the audience that we communicate with. So very important. I always try to make sure that audiences are familiar with the terminology that we're using, because language is important. So I finished my degree in undergrad and then started the next steps. I knew I needed a master's degree to keep going and succeeding. And I credit that to my mother. She was an early childhood educator, and she always pushed education, because that is something that no one that can ever take away from you. And she encouraged me to follow my dreams, follow my passions. But she also told me you can be whatever you want, just don't become a teacher. And that was after I think she recognized I'm the eldest child, how easy it was for me to educate not only my younger siblings, but others. I was always involved in Tomorrow Teachers Club, and just teaching as much as I could and showing everyone sharing all my knowledge. And so I think my mom knew that the public education system was going to have big changes. And I think she experienced big changes throughout her career. Um, so I find it a little funny that now I am a manager of education programs. I feel very blessed to be able to combine uh, kind of the history of my grandparents and using the tools of education to educate others. But I knew I needed grad school, and I was really interested in diversity, equity, inclusion. And so with that, I decided to focus my master's research on why individuals pursue careers in natural resources. So understanding those motivations, barrier supports, life experiences that kind of influence individuals to pursue degrees within the field here in Texas. And so looking at those intrinsic motivations, so why do we do something? It's because we love it. Extrinsic is because we get paid to do something, or there's another tangible benefit, which is why I asked earlier about those motivations. I mentioned I'm very fortunate that I get to do something that I love, and I also get paid to do it. So very, very important. But just some cool facts that I found with that research was that females are more intrinsically motivated than males. Unfortunately, barriers like racism, sexism, and low pay or low job security still exist. And then with life experiences, so what influences specific individuals to pursue careers is having some kind of academic science interest. So for me, yes, going hunting was fun, but I often think about the most exciting part of the hunt was getting to open up a white-tailed deer and look at the inside. Um, and then within the field of natural resources, here in Texas, Texas is a majority minority state, and our professionals don't necessarily reflect the Texas population. So that is very important, especially when we think about how the people that go out and do natural resource education or are working with the general population, making sure that they look like us. So after my master's, I was kind of a little crazy and decided I wanted to start a PhD. And I went up to the University of Idaho. And I was really excited to go up to Idaho, started my PhD, and I did 2 semesters up there. My research project, one of the focus points of my research project was going to be working with beavers. So I'm about 4'10", so I just think it would be funny for me to wrestle a 75-pound beaver down to do whatever we need to do with ecological restoration. But another cool component of my PhD program was working with the Doris Duke Conservation Scholars Program. So getting minority students into the pipeline within the science field. So very passionate about that. But my second semester of my PhD program, my mother unexpectedly passed away. She had just turned 50, and I have a younger brother and a younger sister. My younger brother was 12 years old at the time, and so that really prompted me to come back home and look for career or opportunities back home, whether that meant going back to school and taking science classes to get a nursing degree, or maybe working for Border Patrol, federal job, federal benefits, federal retirement. Were definitely two big ways that I was going to come back home to support my field. So coming back to that extrinsic motivation, especially since my brother was 12 years old at the time. But my mother, fortunately, I was actually in the classroom this week with high school students, and I met one of her former students, and she shared these pictures of my mom. But my mother always pushed us to go out and seek out opportunities and ask questions, and what's the worst that someone can tell you? No, versus you not asking the question. So that really prompted what's next? What can I do here locally back home to stay involved within the field of natural resources? And so Cassie Sheffer, over at Texas Wildlife Association, we were in high, I guess I should say in college, I served as a student worker for Texas Brigades and worked under Cassie. And so she knew that I was looking for a job, and I was very fortunate to have her pass along my name and resume to Tina Buford, who is the director of education here at East Foundation. And so with that kind of prompted my career with East. And so that's how I ended up here at East Foundation. And all of these life experiences I show because we work with a diverse group of audience here in South Texas. So just to show you, the East Foundation has 6 ranches, 217,000 acres of ranch land here in South Texas. I have a little heart over the city of Laredo. Our biggest ranch is the San Antonio Viejo Ranch, which is 150,000 acres. I like to tell students in the city of Laredo, city limits is 55,000 acres. So we could almost fit the city of Laredo 3 times on our biggest ranch. And of course, I have to highlight our ocelots, which are on our El Sal's ranch. We've got 30 photo documented individuals of the remaining 70 to 100 individuals known in the United States. So we were established by the trust of Robert East. And with that, some of the key components were to go forth and do education in South Texas, conduct science research, and continue the cattle operation. So on the ranching side, we do have a primarily cow-calf operation that's a Santa Gertrudis, Red Angus, American Red. We've got 2 brands. So I've got the Diamond Bar, which is what we use on our horses, and then the Lazy Diamond on our cattle. We have some pastures ranging in size from 1,200 acres to 19,000 acres, more than 400 miles of fence across the ranches, 105 miles of road. And so a lot of area across the ranches. And on the science side, we are a living laboratory. We track over 625 wildlife species. We maintain a biological collection. We have one of the largest unhunted commercially unhunted white-tailed deer populations in the state, and 30 ocelots on elk sows. Now, within education, all that we do is build and maintain relationships with schools and communities across South Texas. We coordinate with Texas Wildlife Association to deploy their learning across new dimensions in science curriculum, along with that includes in the classroom and their teacher workshops. Or one of our other great partners is the Whitty Museum, and with them we deploy our Land Stewardship Ambassador program. In the pandemic, that triggered us to start with virtual field lessons. And so that was a skill I never thought I would have to learn, making videos, essentially becoming a YouTuber. And then we have lots of other various partners that we work with across the state, including Texas Brigades, Texas Chapter of the Wildlife Society, ACE programs in South Texas, AgriLife, and that includes the county extension agent and 4-H programs. And so in the classroom, deploying Texas Wildlife Association's curriculum, which is called Wildlife by Design, since the fall of 2014, we've impacted over 100,000 students. And so these numbers, 132,000 students, that's from essentially 10 years of data. I have not tabulated our fall 2024 data. And then with that, we also conduct teacher workshops. And we have virtual teacher workshops and in-person teacher workshop with Texas Wildlife Association. And Elisa and myself, Elisa's our other educator, we've taught over 2,000 teachers since 2014. So we host about 4 to 5 different teacher workshops in partnership with Texas Wildlife Association. Now, our big educational program is called Behind the Gates. And so we have field days and we have week-long sessions. And so our first field day, it started in the fall of 2016 with 11 students. And we brought these students out to the ranch and tailor-made an agenda based on teacher needs with curriculum and what we could offer. So from 2016 to now, our capacity has grown. We can easily host 150 students in one day, ranging from kinder through 12th grade, and teachers are allowed to tell us, teachers have the flexibility in telling us what TEKS they want to focus on, and we can create an agenda to meet those needs. Now, we also have 2 big week-long events, and so we host one on the San Antonio Viejo Ranch, and we host one on our El Saus property. On the San Antonio Viejo Ranch, we focus on 8th grade. On our El Saus property, we focus on 5th grade. And the reason is the Science Star. So depending on needs with these field days, we might show them our natural history collection. But with our big Behind the Gates total, we've had over 33,000 students visit both ranches, which is pretty exciting since 2016, the numbers that Elisa and I have worked to impact. But with our week-long events, the way it's set up, we've got several different stations that students rotate through, and we are very thankful to our partners, the Natural Resource Conservation Service, Texas A&M AgriLife, Texas Parks and Wildlife, their game wardens, biologists, their park interpreters. They all come out and help us to deploy this. And students rotate from these stations. They last about 20 minutes each geared with different topics and TEKS in mind. Students also take a pre-test and a post-test for participation in this. And these are just some of the communities that have come out onto the ranches because we have impacted their lives. And everyone loves data. So I wanted to show the most recent student impact scores. and we've been very fortunate to have statistically significant positive impact. So last year in 2023 on the San Antonio Viejo, we saw a 69% increase in from the pre-test to the post-test. And on our El Sal's Ranch, we saw a 63% post-test increase. So these are great numbers, great to show administrators and teachers alike the importance of getting students out onto the land to show them how what happens behind the gates of a working ranch influences their lives and also translates into achieving positive increases in state science TEKS. Now, my favorite part of the work that we do is a program called Land Stewardship Ambassador. And this is a partnership with the Whitty Museum. We started this brainstorming in 2018, and in 2019, we held our inaugural class. We just wrapped up looking at applications yesterday and sent out semi-finalist interviews. So this April, we'll be graduating our 7th class of students. And the program goals with this is to increase awareness of land stewardship, promote civic engagement, and then inspire students to obtain careers that support land stewardship. Now, we recognize not everyone's going to grow up to become a wildlife biologist, but we really want students to leave the program understanding what happens in Texas and the many different layers that might influence individuals to make land management decisions and how they can be land stewards. And so we developed a semester-long curriculum program. We send out information to students in Bexar, Cameron, and Webb County. We provide all the learning materials. We provide all the transportation, lodging, and food for out-of-town trips. And then we also give students a $400 stipend upon completion. So students show up, they get about 10 different books. They're not required to read all 10 different books, but we want to help build that land stewardship library for them. In addition, they get a hat, a shirt, a backpack, a water bottle, and this $400 stipend. But there's more. So if they complete the program, they get $400. If they complete all their assignments on time, because this is a reading and writing intensive course, they get an additional $50. And new to this year is whoever has the best presentation in their county cohort gets an additional $100. And so students have an opportunity to walk away with $550. And I credit this to Helen Holsworth and Tina Buford for securing the funds to make this program possible, because $550 is a lot for students. And that's a stipend that they can use however they want. I always tell students, if you want to go buy Pokemon cards, you can go buy Pokemon cards. If you want to go to Ulta, that's your money, or hopefully they save it for college. But the course overview is we start off in the fall with a parent-student information session so that their guardians are aware of what their students are committing to, because this is a big, not only financial investment, but time investment. And we want to make sure that we can support our students the best way that we know how. And so bringing in those parents allows us to communicate those expectations. Then we kick off with an overnight trip to the Whitty Museum in January. And so Cameron County, and Webb County will drive up in buses or vans, and the Bexar County students will meet us at the Whitty. And it's a Saturday, Sunday event. They'll spend the night at the Whitty Museum. Don't worry, nothing comes alive. But throughout the process of being there those 2 days, these students are not only learning each other, we're doing leadership activities, we're talking about land stewardship and laying the foundation for the program. The next 8 weeks, we meet with our cohort in our counties, and we talk about different topics. So we'll talk about history, we'll talk about water, politics, economy, public speaking. We'll talk about wildlife, and that involves going to a state park. We'll talk about diversity, and that involves us talking to speakers who are experts within the field of diversity within natural resources. And then we'll conclude in April with a joint overnight trip on the San Antonio Viejo Ranch. So these three cohorts will then drive to the San Antonio Viejo Ranch, which there will be just as excited to see everyone, and we'll show them what happens through our cattle processing pens. The kind of research that we do, we'll invite our ocelot researchers out. We'll do deer necropsy, which you can imagine is very important to my heart, and show students all of the internal anatomy of a white-tailed deer. And so these students then have to complete a final project where they talk about something that they are passionate about and how it relates to land stewardship. So it could be anything from Pikachu and how Pikachu is great at being a land steward, or it could be about how they're a land steward with their family ranch. The only requirement is that the presentation is 5 to 8 minutes long. And it is to help us not only help recruit the next class of land stewardship ambassadors, but so that they can show what they've learned throughout this program. And so this is our 2024 cohort. Very impressed with all of these students. We've had great successes over the years. This is what it looks like when we go to the Whitty Museum. So we're learning about Aldo Leopold. We're reading articles. But something that we've done a really great job at is tracking the data of where these students go past their participation in the program. So we have sent out alumni surveys over the years, the most recent being in July of 2024, and we go back to 2019. And so over in this past spring, I'm sorry, we had 221 graduates from the program, and sent out as an email to ask students what they're up to, what they want to share with us, any accomplishments that they want to do. And we got a pretty close to 70% response rate, which is pretty good, pretty high. I have to brag on that response rate because these are students who were high schoolers when they applied, but now they're into their careers 3 or 4 years, and they're still responding to emails from myself and Helen, and willing to share that information on where they are in their life. But teasing through the data, we've actually found that this past July, 183 students of our 221 alumni completed that survey. Now, when we're looking at what they tell us, we're not asking if they had an increase in land stewardship, or if they're pursuing a career that support land stewardship, or if they're doing civic engagement. We really have an open-ended question for them to just share what they've learned. And so looking at exit surveys and alumni surveys, we've seen that 149 individuals had an increased awareness of land stewardship. 107 are pursuing a career that supports land stewardship, and 98 individuals have participated in some kind of civic engagement. And so I just wanted to highlight here this career level, this graph. On the x axis, we have high school, college, and post-university workforce. On the y axis is the number of alumni. And this is focused just looking at individuals who have an interest in natural resources, or pursuing a degree or career that supports land stewardship. So maybe here in the next 4 years, we're going to have a bunch of land stewardship ambassadors who rise into the profession and talk about how this program influenced their life. But just to share some really cool quotes of those 3 goals within our land stewardship ambassador program. So degrees and careers that support land stewardship. We'll start on the bottom right corner. We had one student, Omar, who realized that he wanted to become a Border Patrol agent, and he specifically wants to serve as a ranch liaison. So he's working his way up through the Border Patrol ranks. And so he wants to do that because he realizes that it's a delicate balance with land stewardship. And so him relating that to other ranch owners, he would feel very empowered with. On the top right, we have increased awareness of land stewardship. So Micah, another student from 2019, the land stewardship program inspired me to never forget my roots and where I come from. We must protect our land, and she's involved in ranching and hopes to continue to spread the awareness of what it takes to be a land steward. And Micah's kind of a unique individual. She's actually an engineer in Houston, but her and her partner have now entered the Wagyu business, which is pretty exciting for me to see, and for her as an engineer to have something different, I think. The last one is civic engagement. And so Elena Gonzalez, she received the Hispanic Heritage Award because she made it a goal to influence women and minorities to engage in conservation efforts. So we have a broad range of students and what they've accomplished. We've had students that have gone on to win scholarships valued at $40,000 and highlight how this program influenced their life. And so here's kind of just like a little word cloud that I made, where they talk about what influences they had throughout their alumni surveys and exit data. Now, I also want to highlight at the Whitty Museum that East Foundation has our land stewardship lab. And so we've got a table there where students and adults can look at topography. And then we also have the Whitty Museum has done a great job of raising some quail there. So if you want to go see some quail, encourage you to go out there. Now, within East Foundation programming, our kind of pipeline and mindset is to go into the classroom and show these students how what we do influences their daily lives, and we do that through Wildlife by Design. Then we bring these students out to participate in our field days or behind the gates, and then pushing them into the pipeline of our land stewardship ambassador. But not only that, showing students other opportunities like Texas Youth Hunting Program, Texas Brigades, wildlife conservation camps, so many other ways that they can continue to pursue their passion and personal interests to be successful within the field. So with that, I really want to ask everyone, we do so much great work across the state as professionals and individuals who have interests in getting students outside. How can I foster a sense of land stewardship? So land stewardship is taking care of the land, and anyone can be a land steward, whether you live in an apartment complex or you live on a ranch. Everyone can be a land steward. So what is something I'd like to have everyone respond in the chat? What is something that you can do to foster a sense of land stewardship in the programs that you participate? Oh, I love wonder. So I love getting students excited through stories and wonder. I also probably joke around a lot more than I should with students, but I think that humor is the best way to get them excited, um, to see what is out there. And so, doing that humor, those stories. I taught these students when they were in fourth grade and was at the high school and was doing another presentation. And they started to ask me, ma'am, I think I remember you. And I said, oh yeah, what elementary school did you go to? And they named off one that has me currently going in. I said, oh yeah, I probably did a presentation. And they got to talking more and they said, oh yeah, I remember you brought the bones. And so that was a lesson in doing animal adaptations using our skins and skulls. with this other group, fostering that sense of land stewardship. So I actually went to this is Trumpman Middle School here in Laredo, and I went to Trumpman Middle School as a student. So I was very excited to come back and share that experience with these students. They are part of the environmental club. And so I did my skins and skulls presentation. And just 2 weeks ago, we had these same students come out to our ranch to participate in our week-long Behind the Gates event. And so it was great to see their faces, great to see how laying those foundation within the classroom, then they were able to build upon that out on the ranch. Lastly, I did want to share. So Micah, who is let's see, one, two, three, four, five from the left standing. I'm sorry, not Micah, May Lugo. She was one of our land stewardship ambassadors about 2 years ago. And she is currently pursuing a degree at Texas A&M Corpus Christi in environmental science with a minor in chemistry. And she said, Masi, I want to stay involved. What can I do? I want to do research. I want to do stuff. And I tasked May with helping me organize all the alumni data, because that requires a lot of work, especially when you have now 221 graduates across the program, across our 3 counties. And so May actually put together a poster that has been accepted to the Southeastern Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies. And she was also accepted to present her poster at the Texas Association for Environmental Education. And so having that research opportunity, now she's going to start working with a professor there at Texas A&M Corpus Christi, and they're going to do some undergraduate research work in chemistry. So I'm excited to see her continue to flourish. But having all of these experiences, the really end goal is to create an opportunity for all these individuals, regardless of where you live and what you do, to be an advocate for land stewardship within your community. So, what does land stewardship mean to you? I had a student, a college student, ask me yesterday, how can we be the best environmentalists that we can? And I told her it really just depends. I mean, I have 2 young boys, a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old. And I told her, I use my reusable water bottle as best I can, which, is all the time. I have a reusable water bottle on me, but, do I do reusable diapers? No. I wish I had the patience and the time to make that happen, but with them being so back to back, it's kind of tough. And I told her, we need to ask the public to make little changes. We can't expect them to go 0 to 100 to be the best land stewards. So being a voice for the land, animals, and people who rely on it. Caring for the land, definitely. No, I with my 2 little boys, we spend a lot of time outside. Um, And one of the things that my 3-year-old loves to do is chase after rabbits. And he knows, he's talked about how he wants to go hunting for a rabbit. And I've explained to him that, whatever we harvest, we have to eat. And he is excited for whenever he gets old enough to go rabbit hunting. But I think with that, we've explained why rabbits are important to the land and the role that they play in their environment. And so very cute to see him grow up and start saying all these terms. Like last night we were talking about jaguars. So nice to see that happen within my own home. And then I have one last question is, how will you continue to incorporate land stewardship into your daily lives? I think it's very important that regardless of what we do, we actively talk about land stewardship and what we can do to take care of the land. Maybe it's as simple as picking up trash in your apartment complex. Maybe it's making conservation plans on your acreage that you might own, but we can incorporate land stewardship daily. Now, the one thing I did forget to talk about was our virtual field lessons. And I will drop the link towards our virtual field lessons. But during the pandemic, we were able to create videos with like-minded partners. And so these virtual field lessons, we have different topics, one on what happens behind the gates of a working ranch, and that's talking more about the cattle side. Then we have one that focuses more on careers. So welder, water infrastructure manager, other careers that support ranches. Then we have one on ocelots, of course. We have one on the history of South Texas, so how South Texas was settled, and where we talk about the native people and how they were able to survive in South Texas. And so we've got a few of those lined up in December, but I encourage you guys to check them out if you have an interest in doing that. And with that, I would love for questions if you all have questions.
Thank you so much, Masi. And again, sorry about the abrupt start. But I think maybe one question I have is kind of what's the biggest lesson you've learned from kind of figuring out this whole process for getting kids out on the ranch, like in terms of maybe communication with the owners or with the kids? Like, what's kind of like your biggest takeaway?
Adapt. Adapt and communicate. I think those are the two big things, two big takeaways. When I first started, I I said I have when students want to come out to the ranch, teachers get a packet. And it's a pretty lengthy packet. It's about 15 pages, and that includes liability forms, but it includes a map to the ranch, map of the ranch, directions to the ranch, ranch address, GPS coordinates, and we still have had schools get lost on their way to the ranch. I think all that's missing is maybe I need to get a CDL and drive the students myself. But we just adapt when students get there, and hopefully make the best of the day that they have and the time that they have left, and then just communicate expectations with teachers. East Foundation is very unique and very much have learning at the forefront of making our educational programs happen. But we've had teachers in the past come out and they're expecting a petting zoo. And that's not what we have. Sure, you'll see some deer, some cattle, maybe a horse, but we're not a petting zoo. So making sure that teachers know that so that they can prompt their students, prompt the parents for those expectations.
Great. We have a question from Amanda. What excites you about your future work?
Man, I am excited. Um, so Helen Holsworth, who is the Chief Engagement Officer at the Whitty Museum, when I met Helen, I was a teenager, and at the time, she was the executive director for Texas Brigades, which is a natural resource organization to inspire students to connect with the outside and gear them into wildlife. And so I met Helen at that time. So I'm pretty excited that I get to work with Helen now as an adult, I guess you could say. And so I'm excited to see what students I impact and how they come back and influence the field of natural resources. May is a great example. of one student, Elena, who I quoted earlier. She's a freshman at Texas A&M Kingsville. She was very fortunate that she has earned her scholarship money, and I think she's got 4 years covered for Texas A&M Kingsville. Um, but she's just another hardworking girl. And I think that excites me, is seeing who I've touched and how they influence the future and influence the world. And I think just getting students excited. Yesterday, I got a email request to meet with someone for an interview. They were doing a college interview project, and she's currently majoring in criminal justice and has had an interest in ornithology, and or she loves birds. And I said, well, have you ever thought about being a game warden? And kind of said, okay, well, kind of walked her through what a game warden does. And I told her I would connect her with a game warden, and man, her face just lit up, at the possibility of maybe going to do a ride along, at the possibility that such a job exists where she can be outside and do criminal justice. So just helping make all those connections, and showing individuals how outdoors, whether it's ranching, nature, wildlife, affects their lives, and how they can be stewards for that in their respective fields.
Wonderful. Well, we are at time, so I will put myself on camera, but I will warn y'all, I just came in from the gym, so I'm sorry. But thank you all so much for joining us today. I did put a link in the chat for our survey, so if y'all wouldn't mind filling that out. And then our next webinar is next week. It's creating clinical community linkages to foster improved health outcomes in urban and rural areas, utilizing nature as a strategy. So that is with the American Heart Association. So we're really excited about that one. And then last but not least, summit registration is open. So hope to see you all there at our summit. If you're not familiar with our summit, it's December 11th through 13th in Waco, Texas. The East Foundation is one of our amazing sponsors for this year's summit, so we're really excited about that. And it's an opportunity to hear from really great presenters, much like we had today, and learn from each other. But thank you everyone for joining us on this Saturday morning. Masi, thank you so much for presenting with us and adapting to our day. And everyone have a fantastic rest of your day.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.